Hello and welcome to the Extreme Cinema Podcast. I'm Alexander Sternberg, and with me, as ever, is Dom Loach. How you been?
I'm good, as always. How are you, Stoney?
I am great. Let's talk about the fucking best movie we've talked about so far.
Yes, by a country
Uh,
mile, I feel.
by a country mile. I don't know if you're quite as far on me as this, as far on this as I am, but I consider this, I was thinking about it, I think it's the third best film of the 2010s. I think it goes Under the Skin, Your Name, and then Raw. That's like how highly I hold this film.
That is insane. I do think it's maybe my favorite horror adjacent film of the 21st century, easily.
Even more than The Lighthouse, because I know how much you love, we both love The Lighthouse.
Yeah, probably more than The Lighthouse.
Damn. Well, I think we should introduce it by talking about first seeing this at Leeds Film Festival 2016, and you're the one who turned me on to this, and we were just, there was that year The Handmaiden, Red Turtle as well. I was like, it was such a year of highly anticipated stuff, and you just sort of went, oh, there's this gory cannibal film that people walked out of and fainted at Toronto, and I was like, cool, I like that.
Yeah,
And
that's
then it
the
turned
thing.
out to be one of the best things.
I only heard about it because of like the controversy and this is one of those faint films where people go in and are throwing up and they've needed doctors there and stuff.
Yeah. Of course they
Yeah.
have.
And it turned out to be so much more than that. Like,
It turned out to be like the best film of the festival, and I like how its reputation, because a couple weeks after it played at Leeds, it started blowing up all over the place, and I was like, thank you, Dom, because the year before I missed Embrace of the Serpent not knowing what it was, and then 2 weeks later it blew up again. I was like, thank you, Dom, for taking me to this. And its reputation changed from here's the gory, shocking cannibal film to here's a great film.
yeah, exactly. Like it was such a good call on my part, accidentally, kind of, because I didn't even know. I just went because I was like, let's go watch something extreme, thinking it was an extreme film, and it ends up being the best film there and one of the best horror films ever made. Like,
It could completely, and full spoilers as always, but like when like the film is so tightly paced and it's so well done, and I was just like so engaging. I thought about half of the film had gone when it ends, and then it ends with that big fucking reveal at the end, and the music just cuts in, and I just fucking looked at you like, what did we just see?
yeah, I know exactly. It was one of those where we've done it a few times. Where after the cinema, we're just like, oh my god, what the hell?
And I think in addition to being the best film we've talked about so far, it's the most accessible. Like, I went with a friend of mine who is not really big into film, just like, oh, let's go to the cinema, this is really good. And he thought it was one of the best 5 films he'd ever seen in his life. That is just, for all intents and purposes, a random person who I took to see this film.
Yeah,
It just
exactly.
gets you in.
It's yeah, it's such a good start point as well, kind of, to extreme cinema.
But not just that, because it's not just a horror movie. Like, and it's a dark comedy, but it's also, I think, fundamentally, before both those things, it's a coming-of-age film.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like there's some fucked up coming of age films out there, what like Ginger Snaps and stuff like that. But this is the most extreme, I'd say, of the coming of age films.
Yep, I know. Is Salo a coming-of-age film?
That is quite an argument, actually.
Oh, looking forward to that episode. But it's a coming of age film, and the thing that just grounds the film is that central relationship. I mean, it's just unique, the relationship between the two sisters.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's the big thing I think in the film is like that weird relationship and how it plays out. And I didn't see any of it really come in, like any of the twists and turns of the film. Like I was like, oh, she's gonna end up being a cannibal. I didn't like
I wish I didn't
understand.
know it was a cannibal film. I wish I didn't know. I think
Yeah,
that would be the ultimate way to go into it, is knowing absolutely nothing. Because the cannibalism starts fucking 45 minutes into the film.
well, that's the thing we knew. That's the only thing we knew that it was a cannibal film when we
It,
were
it's
first
so
going in.
It's, I mean, the main the main sort of thing, it's not like Cannibal Holocaust or the Italian cannibal films. I mean, this is sort of Claire Denis. It's a French New Extremity film, or I would argue it's heavily inspired by it, or a new wave. I've seen some people say this is part of the movement. I think the movement kind of ended at the 2010s, but it's just so. It's not an exploitation film. It's a serious film that uses these extreme horror elements as well as the comedy and the coming of age films, and the kind of surreal elements as well. And it just blends together fucking perfectly.
Oh yeah, I mean, talk about some of the shots in this film. I think that was the first bit in the cinema where we like looked at each other. Was
The
like
party sequence.
the party sequence is unbelievable.
Like, I gotta say, I watched this again last night at about midnight. Would not have turned on a film that late at all, except we had to record today. And I was quite tired. I'm like, oh, maybe this isn't the best way to watch it. And the second that party sequence happened, I was like, nope, I'm just into this. I mean, the directing to get that camera around there and the attention to detail and using those many extras and having the set be so detailed with all the kind of imagery of sort of loss of innocence around that's really subtle. It's not like, it doesn't feel like it's out of place at all.
No, this film is unbelievable. Like I rewatched it last night as well, and I was just like, still knowing what was going to happen, I was blown away still by it. It is ridiculously good, and like you said, all those tiny little subtle things that just are kind of in the background, but not even really there that you realize at all.
That's what I noticed most yesterday, and I think that's when we say a film is well directed, this is the kind of shit we're talking about. I mean, for a first film, this is incredible. Like every line delivery, there is meaning behind the way it's being said. Every reaction shot, there is a deeper meaning to it. Every kind of small shot that should be a throwaway, it has purpose to it. And I don't just mean like narrative purpose, I mean sort of like deeper character purposes. And that is, I mean, the acting, Garance Marilier and Ella Rumpf, I will never pronounce these correctly, fantastic, but also de Cornell's directing is she's just so in command of the film. It's amazing.
I was glad you were the one that attempted the names there.
It's slightly better than I did in my best films of 2017 video where I butchered them.
Oh, I'm guessing this was number one in your 2017 as well.
Oh yeah, it was by a mile.
Yeah, I think Commode said as well it was his number one.
It was Commode's, and you know who else loved the film?
Who else?
Which will also come as no surprise. Hideo Kojima.
Oh, I mean, that makes sense. Like,
this is what I imagine Hideo Kojima watching in his spare time.
because there's some horrible scenes in there around all this emotional stuff. Like, when she's trying to wax her, made me cringe so hard.
Yeah, that's the most horrible. That's
Cringe in the, like,
the
original use of the word there.
Yeah. But also, I love the mix of, like, real and surrealism, which I think is also just fantastic directing. Like, you've got... Like, everything feels really real, especially the script. Like, the script sort of captures how an 18-year-old in 2015 talked very, very realistically. But then you've got all these sort of weird moments using the animals, like a blanket flying off a dead animal, or cut to a horse that's sort of tied in running on a treadmill. And I love these. I love them stylistically and how they look, but also I love the comparisons between the humans and the animal, which is a major theme of the film. I think that's like the most basic reading of the film, and there's a lot more to get into, is the comparison between animal and human, animalistic desires, and that people have, that people also have these desires they can't control, and just like animals.
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing, isn't it? It's like that party scene where she basically turns into an animal, where she gets filmed, and then the eating of all the flesh, obviously, because it is a cannibal film. But like,
and the fighting, and not just when her and her sister are fighting like dogs, which is very obvious, but when the lads are playing football and getting into an argument.
Oh yeah.
I think another thing that I noticed in this rewatch is how important the roommate is.
Oh yeah, the one that ends up dead. I mean, good spoilers, but
The very dead. That's scary fucking reveal as well.
yeah,
That's
that
the
is
biggest scare in the film.
that is a terrifying moment when she
But like his whole identity as gay, and how him, exploring that, and sort of the trials and tribulations in that, which are going on in the background, kind of mirrors, in a more realistic way, mirrors the cannibal story that's going on in the foreground.
yeah, because it's her like coming out as a cannibal almost, which is such a weird sentence to think about. Like,
I mean, it is like, I think the next sort of reading is like is also a very simple one. It's that a girl is sort of growing up to a woman and gets to university, and she's having a sexual awakening, and the sexual awakening is cannibalism.
yeah, oh yeah, that's what I read it as the first time I saw it. Like it's quite a gritty film in like a beautiful way that makes
Well,
you
there's this
feel
sort
like
of
that.
sexual energy going through the whole thing. There's a lot of bodies on display, a lot of imagery around sex and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like almost some Gaspar Noé-esque stuff going on here, quite a bit.
Oh,
Like,
that's interesting. What do you think, Gaspar Noé? Because obviously French New Extremity, but I don't really see any Noé in this except when the lighting goes a bit surreal at times.
I think more just the theming that he likes to do, like you said, the bodies on display and stuff like that. It's just like an intenseness of that he gets across that I don't see much in other things.
But I think when Gaspar does that, Gaspar's like, it feels very like edgelord, like when you
Yes,
got the
yeah,
love
yeah.
hotel sequence in Enter the Void. It's like he's putting all this hardcore on display. Are you offended? Are you offended? But here, when there's just sort of some breast in some shot and stuff, it doesn't feel like it's being shoved in your face. It feels very realistic. And it almost makes you kind of realize, like, oh, in an American film where no character would show anything, above
Yeah.
their belly, how kind of artificial that is.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, thank God France exists.
French.
We're supposed to
Honestly,
hate
just
them.
such well, yeah, but such an amazing country for a film. If in the Euros, we're recording this like ages in advance, so maybe there'll be an England versus France game, and we have to say we hate them.
That could well be.
Currently recording this June 26th for reference. Yeah. You also have like the changing relationship between the sisters in this, and how the kind of power dynamics keep shifting. I love that. It's just such a, like I said, unique relationship. It's incredible, and the way it's shown, not just through symbolism, like there's like the symbol of the unicorn shirt, but just through the kind of subtle ways they interact is pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like it's an interesting relationship I've not seen portrayed much on film
But
before.
well, here's the kind of sensational question, because in the Leeds program for the 2016 Leeds Film Festival, I'm pretty sure, unless I'm completely wrong and it was from a different source, the court now was just asked flat out, incest, is this the case? And she just flat out says no.
Yeah, I
But
think
every time I watch it, I'm like, incest? Question mark.
I remember us talking about this when we'd seen it, so it must have been in the Film Fest program. And I don't see it. I think it's gonna sound so
I
weird.
do, and I think it's like obvious. Like the kiss at the end in the prison, that I think is the real clue. Like that's not a familial kiss, that's a romantic kiss. And I think you could look at their relationship as somewhat sadomasochistic.
Yeah, true. Do you not think it's just very French?
It might be very French, but I don't know. These aren't just two normal sisters. Or then again, it might be.
Yeah, exactly. I love how I'm just like, it's possibly very French, and you're like, definitely. And
The two are somewhat indistinguishable. I mean, if it is, it's very subtle. I mean, this film originally got NC-17, but they allowed it down to an R. If it wasn't, if it wasn't subtle, they would never have let that through.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't think it was picked up on a lot, but clearly was somewhat if it was in that program. So it's like I could see why, and I get the sadomasochistic side of it as well with them biting each other and stuff. Like clearly,
But it's not just the fighting. It's that at the kind of start of the relationship, or when they get to university, she is like the older one, and she is, as the main girl's losing her innocence, she's the one sort of guiding her through it. But then towards the end, she's looking after Alex, especially at the end when she kills the roommate, which is also an amazing reveal.
yeah. Oh, definitely. That's the weird thing. I think you could point to it as well is how you said when she first gets there, she's guiding her, and this whole idea of eating flesh is that losing innocence, and she's the one that first makes her do it. Like she forces the rabbit kidney, is it?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah. So that's like a
that's
very forward metaphor almost. Like
but when I was saying sort of earlier about like how every kind of look and line delivery is important, when she's covered in the horse blood at the very start, you can just, it's not just this obvious smile when she does it that's in slow motion, but it's afterward when she's talking to like the older kids, like you can see like she's changed, like something in her had changed when she had the horse blood dropped on her, and it's very subtle, like you wouldn't pick that up unless you kind of know where the film's going.
yeah, that's true. I think it does that great as well, where she doesn't just like instantly she doesn't do a Daenerys on us. She like
Oh, she's burning the campus down with a dragon. This is so in character.
Game of Thrones had what years? This had an hour and a half. But anyway, she
It's so true. It's so true. I mean, this is how you do a kind of character arc.
yeah, exactly. It's like the perfect like way to show somebody changing. They do it so subtly over so long, and then all of a sudden you're like, it makes sense that she's attacking people and biting them. Like the party scene where she's
Oh
covered in
god,
paint. Like,
I love that scene, and then the sex scene afterward with the roommate, which is the sort of tensest sex scene ever shot.
oh my god, when she bites herself, that messed with me. Like the first time I saw it.
And like, it takes like 2/3 of the movie to get to this stuff, and you're still hooked, and it doesn't feel like it's a slow build up, or you're waiting to get to this, or you know where it's leading. It's just so organic, the way the film flows.
Well, that's the thing. It takes a long time, doesn't it? Like I think the turning point is what the sister throwing herself in front
The
of the
finger.
car. Oh, the finger actually. Yeah, yeah.
Which is, I mean, that scene is again just fantastic direction, like the kind of intensity there, the kind of black humor with the dog looking for the finger as well.
I know.
The way the score pumps in, like perfect timing. The look of the sister after she sees it, and then that look changes meaning once you find out that she's also a cannibal. It's like just beat after beat after beat after beat, just perfectly hit.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think of the ending with the dad?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, same. Because I could see some people been like, "Oh, that's a little of a I don't know," because it's not obviously not a cop out, but I could maybe see some people being weirded by it. But I think it's fantastic.
I could see some people not wanting to explain
Yeah,
that it's like a generational thing, but also like the sister has it, so this just makes sense. And the monologue is shot perfectly. The effects are great as per the whole film. The cut is exact microsecond you want it, and it adds so much to the meaning of the film, I think.
yeah. I think that's what I love so much about it. That cut is one of the most perfect cuts I've ever seen,
And
especially for the ending.
to like the bright red screen as well with raw in kind of big letters. It's just the score as well, like the way it kind of goes from like kind of acoustic instruments to like that those heavy synth tones, and it does it so organically as well. It's a really good score. And the soundtrack as well. Like this is how you use
Music.
like
Yeah.
licensed music.
It's it's such a good film. Like, this is the first film I think we just completely gush about every single aspect, because I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like, could you think of anything? Like,
Oh, it's funny you said that. So there's that one surreal sequence where the dead animal is lying down, and then the the blanket is pulled off it. After watching it, this is the sixth time I've seen this film. I
wow.
counted. I could see the line. That's it.
Oh, is that
That's a
it?
non-problem as well. That's a complete non-problem that shouldn't bother anyone. And if it does, they're lying,
Yeah.
or not lying. If it does, they're nitpicking. But like,
Goodness,
that's the only thing with this film I noticed.
just say that's such a YMS problem right there.
6 out of 10. I saw The Wire in one scene.
We love YMS, by the way. Don't like.
Don't hate us, but you can't deny he's like that. But
But I,
it just runs so efficiently, and like for this has got to be one of the best debut features ever made.
oh,
I mean that.
Oh.
I mean this is sort of Reservoir Dogs esque.
yeah, literally what I was gonna say. Like, genuinely up there with the greats, and I see it talked about, especially in people that know film so much now, as like look on its letterbox and stuff. That's like nearly a perfect. Like, it's insane. People adore this film.
It's a classic already. I don't just mean a classic of extreme cinema, like a classic of top 10 most disturbing films ever made. I mean, it's a film people for 4 straight years have kept talking about and will keep talking about. And I've just been the script supervisor on a short film that was the main influences were like this and Dogtooth. Like, this will inspire people. This will be a relevant film in 20 years' time. I'm sure of it.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad it managed to like relinquish that, because it started with the, oh, this is top 10 disturbing things, but I've never seen it like on any lists or anything like that. Like, it feels like it completely relinquished that as soon as people start
No,
to
I think
see
we're the
it.
first people to talk about it. I think we're the first to talk about it in that context, even though this podcast is just an excuse to talk about movies more so than going through all the messed up stuff. But like, it it's just it's so good, and I feel like it won over horror fans like pretty universally. But it wins over people who don't quite like horror movies as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like, because it's not purely horror at all. Like it's not like a straight out scary film. The scary parts, but it more makes you feel weird rather than terrifies you or anything.
It's it's engrossing and uncomfortable at points, and like, yeah, gross at points and scary at points, and but it balances everything perfectly. It's not like when there's humor, it's not like in contrast to the horror. It's a part of the film. Every single element is played so perfectly, and I think that's the script primarily.
Yeah, yeah, perfect script. Like,
I
it's
mean, what an ear for dialogue. Like, how many films actually capture how people who were 18 and 2015 talk?
oh, it's almost impossible. Like, that did it in Dazed and Confused. Linklater does it. That's like
No, but no, I Linklater does it, but Linklater is still writing stylish. Like, there are a lot of kind of philosophical monologues
oh
that
well,
don't
yeah,
relate
yeah,
to anything with the characters. This is like American Honey is the thing I would link closest to this.
yeah, true, yeah.
That like that captured millennials perfectly, and this did so as well. And it's not like it's trying to do that. It's not like this is a film for our youth and it's really like prescient. It's just a film about these characters, and their voices are just so well captured. My God.
Yeah, I think that's why, like you said, people would see it as this precursor to a new French New Wave again as well, because it captures that millennial voice so well.
De Cornell's next film is at Cannes this year, and I'm praying for it to be at London Film Fest. Like, I will be. London Film Fest kind of sucks because it's ridiculously expensive and annoying to get tickets for and everything, but like, I will be going to that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I hope it's at the Leeds one. So like,
Oh, it probably will be. I mean, Raw was at it.
yeah, exactly. Like, and that debut, and now Raw's so critically acclaimed. I imagine it would be.
I think we should say as well, this is the first film we've talked about where there's no need going into like the history of its censorship because it just wasn't. Obviously, like Britain especially has come a long way in the last 10 to 15 years of not banning and cutting shit too much, too badly. But it's just it's such a modern era film. This isn't like a video nasty. It's not trying to be a video nasty. It's not trying to be an Italian cannibal film. It's just a strikingly cutting edge movie.
Yeah, exactly. Like, cause it's so modern compared to everything we've talked about as well. Obviously, it's not as banned. I'm sure it is in some of those insane countries out there.
I did have a bit of a look. I couldn't see it, but I don't know if this has been released in every territory or whatnot.
Yeah, true. But that's
I mean,
like you said, it's not an exploitation anyway. It's not trying to be that.
I think the thing with it is the kind of sexually charged energy to it. The fact that this is all to do with sort of animalistic desire and sex. I think that's what's so unnerving about it. It's not like a film about a rational cannibal who rationally wants to eat people. It's about a person whose desires are sort of taking over them, and everyone can relate to that. And it's just using the cannibalism as sort of a really extreme metaphor for it.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's so genius, because they somehow made you relate to cannibalism in like the most pure form. It's so weird.
Made you relate to cannibalism, make you relate to this completely fucked up, unique relationship that, like, nobody, well, maybe someone does, but, like, it's such a realistic relationship, even though the stuff that's actually, the actual, like, story beats that are happening with it are insane. But the relationship is just so good that you can relate to this relationship, even though she's, like, taking her to murder people in cars and eat them.
Yeah, exactly. That's like never seen a film make me relate to something so messed up. Like,
I mean, not just Julia Ducournau does more. I'm so excited for that new film, but the two leads, I really want to see them in more because they're not in a lot.
yeah, I don't think I've seen him in anything else after or before.
No, I've added some stuff Ella Rumpf was in to my like letterbox watch list, but it's nothing well known.
Yeah, because they're fantastic as well. Like, I guess we did say the acting was great, but like the acting is unbelievable. Like,
The acting's incredible.
yeah,
Should we do final
yeah,
thoughts?
you go for it because I feel like you'll have a lot to say.
I fucking love this movie. I love, to paraphrase Roger Ebert, I loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. Loved every minute of it. It's so good. It's, like I said, the third best film of the 2010s in my eyes. It is a horror movie for horror fans. It's such a horror movie for horror fans. It's such a horror movie for not horror fans. It's everything. If you want an intelligent drama, black comedy, horror film, if you just want a good fucking movie, go watch this. I mean, it blew me away. And I don't think I'm overhyping this as well. Like, because I gush about this film constantly, and I've never had anyone tell me after I recommend it to them, you overhyped it a bit. Like, it's so good. And frankly, like, if you're listening to this already, you've seen it, I imagine. You kind of know how good it is. And Julia Ducournau, come on, she could just be such a voice in cinema, and I'm just so excited to see where her career goes.
Yeah, I mean, all I can do is literally echo everything you said. Like, and just say that it is accessible as well. Like, if people are like, I'm in an iron about it, it is like, obviously, don't show it to your kids. But
It's so
like,
engaging. It feels like it's 45 minutes. it honestly feels like half a film because you're just so in this world.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that feel where it's like you're at a really good gig or something like that, where it seems to last 20 minutes because you're just so engaged. You know what I mean, though?
I know. Wait a minute, they're playing Everlong. That means we've been here for.
Of course, that's what I was thinking of.
It is like that. That's literally how I described the feeling when it ended. I'd compare it to when Foo Fighters played Everlong and we just looked at each other like, wait, what?
Yeah, exactly. What a weird way to end talking about this film.
We were comparing Necromantic to Misfits last week, and now we're comparing Raw to the Foo Fighters.
As you can tell, we like music. Anyway.
So, Dom, what are we watching next week? We're gone from one masterpiece to another. Am I right?
Oh, just the best. I mean, tell them, Sterny, please.
We're watching a classic Hong Kong Category 3 film, Ricky O, The Story of Ricky. If you've not seen it, it's the most mental martial arts film that I know that I've seen. I've seen like a few crazy things, like Miami Connection, obviously, but like this.
Yes, this is unbelievable. If you've not seen this, holy shit.
Get as many people round as possible.
Yes, it's definitely a watch with your friends type of one. This film is incredible.
That next episode's going to be a lot more like the previous one of us just, like, losing our minds. Like, here, like, thoughtful discussion. Next week, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, if you're ready to hear me scream again.
Yeah. Right. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Extreme Cinema Podcast with Alexander Sternberg and Dom Loach. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing, as it really helps us out. The original artwork for the podcast was done by George Arnold. The Extreme Cinema Podcast, available where all good podcasts are available.